Hi, I'm Lenny.
And
I'm building this layout for the PECO 200 challenge.
back in April, PECO announced that they were going to have a competition to celebrate Rail 200. It was the Rail 200 Model Railway Competition. This was to build a diorama on a scenic board in a very small space, I must admit, of either modular or standalone. Well, I do have the 009 to work on, but I thought, hell, let's just have another project to do. So I ordered a board, but not just for me. One for the boy as well, because he wanted to take part, and there's an under-16s category. So we've been filming our progress as we've been working on PECO's Rail 200 model layout competition. Why don't you follow through the next few episodes to see how we've got on. So we'll start off with the boy's build, as he shows us his plan and starts to put together his diorama.
So, I had a little look. I've made a plan. So, I've got the 14X6 and 2 wagons out, and I'm seeing what will work and how it will fit with siding. So for now, I'm doing 2 wagons, and then I'm going to have some gates on the crossing here. But it's going to go up the hill, and I've got the signal box to go there, and I'm going to have my platforms along here, and then I'm going to have the waiting shed on the platform there. So that's my plan for now. So I'm going to cut it into strips like that, put it down the side, and after I've done that, I'm going to get some paper and scrunch it into balls, put it in between, so then when it's done I can put plastic cloth over it and then put some paper and it should be done. And then I'll move on to the platforms and then the bridge at the end. So that's my plan for now. So right now I'm applying the glue for the back seam at the end. Good. Right now I'm doing the tunnel mouth bit. So I've just looked around and I found 2 tunnel mouths like that, and I've picked one to use. So I'm just getting some glue to glue it in place. I'm adding a card to it now, so after I've done that, I'm going to put it down my baseboard and see how it looks. Like that.
Well, the boy got off to a flying start. Probably time I had a look at my own build. Okay, so I thought I would take part in this Rail 200 competition that PECO are holding. And I didn't want to do the modular scene. I wanted to challenge myself to do the standalone and see what I could come up with. So I played with a few ideas. I did think about narrow gauge, but I'm already making a narrow gauge layout, so why make another one? I have some TT models. I thought maybe I could get TT on here, but in the end, as you can see, I've decided to try and squeeze a very, very small branch line terminus onto this board. So this board is not particularly large. It is roughly 1 foot by 2 foot 5 inches, I think. I have to double check. Let me get a tape measure. Hang on a second. Here we go. So there we are, 2 foot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So there you go, 2 foot 5.5 inches. So yeah, not a lot going on there, but with the freeway PECO point, code 75 track, and then a wide point at this end, I can just about fit 2 of these Hornby coaches in the middle, so I can run a loco round, and that'll hold, instead of 2 coaches, 2 wagons and a brake van in there, which can go on the siding here. So I think that's the plan. I think that's what I'm going to do. I did think about something industrial. I've got a couple of industrial engines, but I thought if I just make the scene sort of non-generic, you can just swap it round. So then instead of old Stepney there, we can just take that out, and you know, maybe the Peckett can be in on a scene, and maybe have like a workman's train or something. But I have to think about it. But I thought, yeah, something like that. And then the rules do allow you to build a field yard on the side. You just don't enter the field yard as part of the competition. So that means that this can be a layout or a diorama, but it's a working diorama with a field yard extension that I can put on afterwards. Okay, so getting on with my build, you can see I've laid the cork down because I've worked the track plan out, which is the simple run round loop and then a siding to the side. That's all it is, and then the rules do allow the fiddle yard, so that will be then put on here so that the engine can then sneak back into the fiddle yard and back onto its train, and off it goes. But when it's entered in the competition, the fiddle yard's not allowed. So it's all about the scenery. Anyway, track laying then. As you can see, I've started drilling holes to fit points. I'm going to use some brass rodding. So I've got this brass rod and then a filler bit to go into the point. I've soldered it together. And that will pop up in the hole here, and then because the freeway point has 3 frogs on it that all need their polarity switching, I don't think I can get away with not wiring this up. I've got some micro switches, so the idea being that we'll take this and we line the micro switch up in the right place, and when I push forward, it'll obviously change the polarity on the frog to the way I want it. So that's the plan. If it works is another question, but that's the intention anyway. Right, so I had a little change of heart with how I was going to do the points. I even considered a point motor at one point, which I really didn't want to do. I wanted to sort of make these manual. So problem with this is, because I've already sort of soldered it together, was I've made the hole there, but then I can't feed it in there and get that in there without drilling a really big hole in there, which I didn't want to do. And it was sort of the other alternative was then to make new ones and take this out and solder it together, and I probably could have done that, but it just felt a bit complicated. So simplify things. I've got these bamboo skewers, because what I wanted to do was operate it from both sides of the layout depending where you stood. So there we are, they're in there like that, which is easier to put in because I've drilled the holes either side, thread it through, and then put the brass rod through afterwards, and then I'll just glue that in place once I'm ready. And then the micro switch can go right next to this, and as you can see, well, finding my position in the right position, it will operate the micro switch like that. So that's the plan, and that's what I'll do with the other 2 point blades. Now, the way you're going to see things, it's going to look like that me and Lenny are kind of synced up in our build. He, however, is absolutely miles ahead of my own build. You'll probably find out in the next clip of mine. Here, he's building his tunnel and his hills. So it's just foam board construction, cutting out some offcuts of foam board into a hill shape and then gluing them in place before taking some cardboard cereal packets and then just gluing strips of them on to form his hill. With that done, he cut out strips of plaster cloth and is applying them over his formed hills. Right then, I've been putting this job off really because mostly I've been concentrating on my 009 over there. But I really do need to start getting on with this because I think this board came in April. It's now June. I've done a little bit of progress, as you can see. It's kind of on its side at the moment because I'm working on the table, and I'll tell you what I'm doing on the table in a minute. So I'll just lift it up and pop it here. So you can see these rather ugly pieces of wood which will be disguised eventually. This is all the uncouplers, so that I can run the train round and be completely hands-free on the layout. There's also points, and I was about to demonstrate that one, and I just remembered that the bar I put in has fallen out and needs gluing back in. So I'll flip this over in a second. I've also realigned this siding because I thought about it, and there was a massive gap here and not much space here. And I was like, well, this is supposed to be a diorama competition and, you know, scenic modelling. So I kind of need to give myself as much area as I can to scenically model. So that's been relined and done like that. So flip over, we can see what I've been doing around here. I've put all these micro switches in. Again, the bar's falling out for me to just demonstrate that one, so I'll just do one over here. And I've now noticed that the bar has fallen out of this one as well, so it's not going very well. I need to glue them in. I hadn't glued them in just because I wanted to make sure, but there we go. You can see that would be the micro switch working for the electro frogs on the points above. So all operated and controlled by the barbecue skewers basically. It's all wired up, as you can see. I've got some isolated switches, and I have two on each side, and they go to the same areas, but obviously one's for the positive, one's for the negative, and the idea being that you can operate this layout from either side. So it'd just be a case of making sure that these are switched on and then switching these off for isolating if you're working this side and vice versa. And then, as you can see, all the uncouplers are just a case of they are that. That's all they are, just to uncouple. So that's as far as I've got. Now I want to have some signals on the layout. So whilst I've decided it's going to be some sort of light railway round Sussex Kent area, the choice is between basically London Brighton signalling or South East and Chatham signalling. Both of them have different types of ground position signals, and I did consider that the South East and Chatham might be easier because I could take these N-gauge arms and adapt them and put them on these ground position posts of the disc signals PECO do, and sort of modify it to have a working signal. In fact, I have one that I've made before, this bad boy here. I need to balance the camera or put it somewhere. Give me a second, I'll show you. Right then, here we are. This is the signal that I made some time ago, but it said it does work and now it's jammed. What have I done wrong there? There we go. It's because it's fighting against gravity at the moment. There we go. So I actually modified that so it would work. And that's what I want to do with the ground position signals on my layout. So as I say, I had thought about doing the South East and Chatham, which uses these, well, I was going to use these N-gauge arms, modify them. They wouldn't be quite right because the lenses are technically in the middle, but you know, I don't think it would be the end of the world. The alternative is the London Brighton ones, and the London Brighton ones work on a basis of, imagine there was discs on here, there'd be a disc there and it rotate and then show you that disc. And I wasn't sure how to do it until I actually looked at photos of the real life prototype, because how do they do it? And looking at the mechanics of it, as you can see, these rather appalling drawings here, but essentially I've worked out that, yeah, this would pivot, the bar pulls across, the bar pushes that disc round, and then the post would turn on top of that. So I'm going to try and scratch build some London Brighton South Coast signals that can be used on the layout underneath. Right, here's the signal sort of complete. I've just set it up to make sure it works, and it does work, but I swore at this a lot, and I mean a lot, because it's very, very fiddly, and there's a lot of moving parts on it. I'm not going to demonstrate it working right now because, as I say, it's very fiddly, and whenever I touch it, it tends to fall apart. But when I did manage to get it to work, it did rotate the disc by moving this arm. Now, the only problem is that I designed it so that you put a rod underneath, and then you could pull the rod down, and that should pull the whole mechanism. That won't work, I've realised, because obviously pulling that rod down, it's just going to try and force that down. It's not going to make it go that way. So I just need to think how I'm going to get that to move. By, you know, the idea being that I want to use the barbecue skewers as the control devices underneath. So I'll think that through, but otherwise the whole thing works. So I just now need to assemble it all together, get all the measurements, and then make the others. Right, here we are then. It's pretty much set up with just requiring the discs on the head of the signal. But I can demonstrate. There you go. It works. So yeah, I'm very pleased with that. And I've had a little play with it. I can just have the rod diagonally go down. The play is so small. As long as I have the hole that it feeds through wide enough, it should work. Should. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. And while I was feeling quite smug about working signals, back in April, Lenny had started painting his baseboard.
So right now I'm painting the sky. So after I've done this, what's going to go on the back is a factory. So hopefully it should look good. Like the sky up there, you can see. So I was taking 3 different colours. That one, and that one. And I was mixing them together on the plate. So I've made it look, I've going with that star, so when it dries it should look good. So that's what I'm doing now. So right now, I'm painting the ground because I've just painted on the sky a minute ago. I've let it dry. I haven't had to wait long because that's acrylic.
And with his ground painted, Lenny moved on to painting his road. I, however, am still building those signals. If you want to know how I did it, well, you can, because I'm about to show you right now. Okay, right, you can see this signal then. I've added some discs now for the heads of the signals. So it's in the stop position. Obviously, that's the go position. So, how did I make this signal, you ask? Well, maybe you don't, but I'm going to show you anyway. So, we have some very thin plastic card. I think it's about 10 thou. And then I've got the ratio, double check. Yeah, ratio ground signal kit. So I'm just kit bashing this basically. I've cut the ground plate off and then glued it to the plastic card. Then I've made a small hole here to allow the post to be buried into the ground. So we'll glue that in, and the next job will then be to make the brackets that hold the signal in place. And that's just made with micro strip, glued into sort of an L girder and then filed into shape. Okay, so these are the parts that are going to knock up the sort of bracket and the signal. So as I said, this is L girder micro strips. It's 2 bits of micro strip and then glued together, holes put drilled in, cut to shape and filed down to look like the brackets. They'll go here and here. This one goes in the middle here on the back, and that's what's going to have the pivot to allow the whole mechanism to work. This will also be required to go over at that bit, so the arm doesn't, the mechanism doesn't sort of go back in towards the arm because then it jams it up. So that's kind of important, that bit. Now this is the disc which goes on the bottom here, and it has a hole in the center and a hole in the side, and then the rod will go in the side one and it pushes from one end to the other. And that is actually made from these, which are one of my favorite scratch building little items. They're very useful. They came from a Hornby Southern locomotive detailing kit. They're like the disc codes. I've used them for so many things. I've only got 3 left now, so I have to source some more, but they're very useful. So that's what that's made from. And then this is the lamp that will go on top, which is from the original ground position kit. And then I've just drilled a hole in the bottom, and I have some brass rod in it, which will then pass through the brackets and then be glued into the bottom of that. And that's how the whole thing will be set up. Once done that, can then move on to the mechanism that makes the arm move. Okay, next is to make the arm mechanism, or the hammer weight, for moving the signal. So we've got this off the ratio kit, which is the hammer weight. This is the back blind. Drilled a hole in it there. Not the most centre hole. They're very, very difficult to drill and get into the centre. So just do it very gently, and it'll be right when you super glue it on. If you accidentally gone through one side a bit too much. I've got some brass rod in preparation, and then this is a bit of brass strip taken off an old, I don't know, it must be like is it brass or copper, whatever it is. Anyway, you know, from the old contacts off some old motors. I just cut the bits off and drilled some holes in. But yeah, the reason I picked that is because this is where most of the movement would be, and the wear and tear is going to be here, so I thought that would be better to be metal rather than plastic. So I've drilled the holes and glue it together, drill through this hole to get through there. We thread the brass rod through that. It all goes through the mechanism. This goes the other side, stop the arm moving backwards and forwards. And then it's a case of just getting this brass rod, shaping it to go through the middle hole here so that the whole mechanism can move. The bottom hole is to add some brass rod later on so that you can control it from underneath the baseboard. Right, and here is the assembled, but not completely, well, I say assembled, almost assembled. You need to keep it all separate to glue signal. So the additional is this bit of brass rod here that goes around the back there and threads through the bottom of this here. And as you should be able to demonstrate, probably going to do it now. No, it's not going to do it now. It's not very easy to do, but it does work. I had to test it, and obviously the other signal works. Exact same principle. So yeah, I will paint these and glue it together, and that should then be another signal built. Right then, I'm not going to lie with this signal. It looked a lot more simpler to put together than I've made it out to be. I had a few issues. I just couldn't get the arm to turn, not like on the first one, but now it does. And the problem was that on the copper strip here, I drilled the holes too big, and so the rod just moved around. So when you pulled it back, it just had plenty of play and no reason to pull on the wheel. So I had to redo that. The wheel was too low, which meant that this bit of rod here was popping out. So I cut the whole thing out and then put that wheel back on, but at a higher position, which allowed the rod to go back in. And then just for belt and braces, I've done a couple of washers in plastic card and super glued them each side to stop this moving out. I also, I forgot to mention, I cut a bit of extra copper out and drilled a smaller hole to thread the rod through, and that's why that one now works. So yeah, and there I broke it. There we go, I've figured that back together. They do work, honest. And just to prove they do, here's a working one. Well, there you go for this episode. As you can see, Lenny is flying along with his build whilst I am still working on the signals. In fact, I've still got, as you might be able to spot there, 2 more to create. And they are ratio ones. They are modified to look like London Brighton South Coast signals, and I've even added LEDs. How did I do that? Well, you'll have to come back for the next episode to see how we both get on. Hopefully you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, click the like button. If you want to see more, click the subscribe button, especially if you want to follow our progress. You know, if you want to cheat and see how we've done ours so you can make yours better. See, there's an advantage of watching these videos. Then click the subscribe button. It's free, doesn't cost you a penny. Could even win you £500 because you might be able to make your model better than my model. I'm not saying I'm going to win, I'm just trying to entice you to subscribe. Apart from that, hopefully you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Looking for more Rail 200 episodes? Well, I haven't done any more yet, so you have to look at my other stuff. Or as Fred Durst says, take a look around.